To order the Board of Adjustments meeting for the City of Wilmington, Thursday, November 16th at 1 o'clock. Before we go forward, I'll read the Board of Adjustments introduction statement. Hearings before the Board of Adjustments are quasi-judicial in nature. Decisions of the boards are based on the record of these proceedings. To grant a variance requires a concurrent vote of 4/5 of the members of the board. To reverse or modify the determination of an administrative official requires simple majority. Evidence submitted to the board for review becomes part of the record. Appeals of the board's decision are to the Superior Court and are based on the record. Appeals must be filed within 30 days of the date of filing of the board's order in the Planning Division. A hearing before the board is conducted in accordance with rules of procedure. Those who want to testify in a case are sworn as witnesses. The chairperson recognizes those who want to testify or their attorney for presentation of evidence during the hearing. To ensure that all testimony is properly recorded, please come forward and address the board. State your name, address, and speak clearly. All right. Do you want to go ahead and swear people?
All right. If all applicants, staff will stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
All right. The next item will be approval of the minutes from the October 19th, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion for the minutes as presented to you? A second? I'll second. All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Those minutes are approved. We have one item on the agenda. It's item number 3, 1009 Upper Reach Drive. That's asked for continuance. To be to the December 21st meeting and to be held at this location would be the City Council chambers. Is any information, any presentation by staff on that? Or we?
The applicant was just unavailable to make the meeting this month. He will have 2 items for next month's meeting, so it's more convenient to schedule them both for December.
Okay. All right. Anyone that would make a motion for that continuance? There's been a motion to continue. A second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Continue to the December 21st meeting. Our next item in old business is for 1618 Dawson Street. It's a variance to City Code, Chapter 18, Land Development Code, Section 18-407 and 18-408, pertaining to semi-urban frontage requirement in the Community Business District. Catherine, we'll let you present. All right. There's a member has to himself. We do have to take recusals.
Right.
Recusal for cause.
Yeah, so if you'll just say.
Practice together, so I need to recuse myself from this item.
Thank you. This item is for a variance to the frontage requirements in the Community Business District. This property is currently mixed use, but it's proposed for Community Business Conditional District. It contains a vacant retail store. It was a former Rite Aid, and the applicant proposes to redevelop it for a convenience food store with fuel pumps. It was reviewed by the city's Technical Review Committee on August 2nd, 2023, and is scheduled, I believe, for the December 6th Planning Commission meeting to consider that rezoning request. Prior to going to Planning Commission, they would like to request some variances for the frontages, specifically regarding the requirement that 17th Street, which is considered a frontage street by city code, contains a primary entrance. They have proposed the primary entrance to be internal to the site along the southern elevation. Additionally, design requirements for the semi-urban frontages as set forth in LDC Section 18407 includes a minimum 40% fenestration requirement. At the time the case summary was published, we were not able to, we didn't have the requested variance, but it's my understanding that the applicant is prepared to present today what the specific variance request to the fenestration is. And this matter was continued from the October 19th meeting due to only 4 members being eligible to vote on the item. We're in the same position today, but the applicant has, of course, decided to move forward with it. I'd like to enter the case summary along with all attachments into the record. And I'd like to just go over a couple of slides. This is the current Dawson Street elevation of the subject property. The East 17th Street elevation, that's the frontage street, which is forcing the requirements for primary entrances and the fenestration. The southern elevation, which is an internal elevation to the site, that's where the proposed primary entrance is located, and the applicant has some slides that will show the proposed building design. This is just existing conditions. This is currently the west elevation along 16th Street. And just for informational purposes, I included a couple of pictures of gas stations, convenience stores that are on corner lots, have double frontages. This one doesn't have 2 entrances, but this one, well, it does have 2 entrances, one internal to the site and one along Market Street. It doesn't address 10th Street, which would be the western elevation in this case, but 10th Street, of course, is not a frontage street and wouldn't have been required to have a primary entrance along 10th. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of staff, and as I said, Amy Schaefer, representing the applicant, also has a presentation for you.
Does anyone have any questions for Catherine at this time? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Amy Schaefer with Lee Case. I am here tonight, this afternoon, sorry, I usually do these at night, asking for 2 variances. I think that might be something we need to talk about it as we move forward. For a property located at, I'm here with the development team. We have RDC, our local architects, as well as Timmons Group, the engineers, as well as Mr. Andy Perillo from Circle K. So we're all here to answer any questions that you all might have. I'm not actually going to lead this presentation. I'm going to ask Mr. Ralph Watson to come up and introduce himself, and he'll take the presentation from here. This is a very unique piece of property that Mr. Watson is going to go over. We are almost the full block, and we are bordered by 16th, 17th, and Dawson Street. So with that, I'll let Mr. Watson introduce himself. If you could just state your name, your credentials, and then we would ask that he be entered as an expert.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Again, my name is Ralph Watson. I'm the architect of record. My registration number here is 14583, and our address is 11921 Freedom Drive, Suite 1110 in Reston, Virginia. That's all right. I want to hold this. Yeah. And how do I switch the slides here?
Yep. Just,
Okay.
yep.
All right. Thanks. So as was noted, the site is fronting on 3 streets. We have 17th Street on the east, Dawson to the north, and then 16th Street on the west. The existing building that is there now is fronting off of 16th Street with 3 rows of parking. You have 2 rows of parking on Dawson Street, and the service entry and loading located on 17th Street, along with the utility connections. So this is a view of Dawson Street. So you can see that there's no pedestrian connectivity from Dawson Street to the building. There's no real active down-level retail along that primary facade. There's no or limited articulation of architecture and greater than 20 feet of blank wall. There's no public amenities along this side. Similarly, off of 17th Street, which is your upper view, there's no connection and limited articulation. Again, as noted, this is the loading area with a service entry off of it and also their trash enclosure. On the lower part of the slide, you have the 16th Street view, which has their primary entrance. And again, none of the above mentioned connections or amenities.
And just briefly, we will go over the site plan just to orient you, and I'll ask Mr. Jacob Dooley to come up. He's with Timmons. Just arrow to the next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jacob Dooley. I work for Timmons Group, and I'm the civil engineer on this project. And just going over our site plan, as mentioned, it's a unique site touching 3 street frontages. We're proposing a 5,200 square foot building along Dawson Street with 7 gas pumps. That'd be 14 fueling positions. The site has an existing stormwater control pond to the south that we plan on utilizing and upgrading if need be during design. We are planning to maintain the access locations along 16th and 17th Street, and we've worked with and coordinated with WMPO and NCDOT for a plan along Dawson Street to help circulation improve the congestion along there. And we're proposing sidewalk access directly to Dawson Street as well as 17th Street. And we've also prepared a conceptual landscape plan, which this is conceptual in nature, and we plan on meeting all of the code requirements during design. But this is more to give you a feel of the green space on site, and as we're actually reducing the existing impervious.
So just briefly, as I said, we are requesting 2 variances. One is the semi-urban frontage requirements. This is a very unique property. It has 3 really major intersections, even if they're not all classified as such. And so right now, the building as structured and set on the property doesn't really address any of them. We do propose to address all 3 of them, just perhaps not meeting the exact standards of the code. In addition, we are asking for a variance from the fenestration requirements, and I apologize if I didn't say that correctly. I do note that in the staff report, the fenestration says that it is windows and doors, and I believe it says transparent. But we did pull the North Carolina Building Code, and it does say opaque and glazed. So that might be an additional variance that we're requesting, because all of our windows are not going to be completely transparent like the ones that you see here today. So we can get into that further as we go through the presentation. And I'll pass it back over to Mr.
Were you going to talk on this point, or are you going to go?
Yeah, I think that was me.
Okay, I thought this was you.
But that's okay. Go ahead.
All right, so for the variance request, we're looking at from the 40% to a reduction for 17th Street. And we'll get to that in a few minutes, to that percentage. And then also for, again, the 17th Street requirements.
And we wanted to- Sorry, you're right, I should say something. Sorry. And may I point out, we'll get to this. This is all pulled from the code. And if you look at figure 18407.12, anything above the roof line in that clearly doesn't have fenestration. And so as you'll see, our elevations, they're very similar to that, even though in discussion with staff, they do include the full facade as the fenestration requirements. So I think we have that broken down for you so you can see the difference of what we're asking for. And again, we just wanted to point out that we are on 17th Street, which would require that primary access.
All right. So this is a view of the front of the building, looking at from the 16th Street approach. So you'll see that we have a primary entrance off of Dawson Street as well as off of 16th Street. Our Dawson Street entrance has a public plaza area with amenities. And we have a connection, the direct connection for the pedestrian access both to the 16th Street entry as well as the Dawson Street entry. This would again be the same view, or the view of Dawson Street from 17th Street approach. Again, you can see the public plaza at the Dawson elevation, as well as on the left side of the slide, you will see another plaza area with benches that is off of 17th Street. And this would be the view from the 16th Street approach from the internal site, looking at the entries there, as well as the 16th Street entry to the left. All right, this would be the view from 17th Street as you come into the site, looking again at the 17th Street elevation as well as the internal site elevation. All right, so we're proposing a highly efficient construction for better sustainability, which would utilize less energy over time. The building structure is comprised of SIPS panels, which is a structural insulated panel. If you're not familiar with that, it's basically a plywood or an OSB board sandwiched onto insulation, and that provides your structure as well as your building envelope. The panels also form the lateral resisting systems, as well as takes the structural loads for all of the openings. So looking at the materials for the exterior, we're utilizing a Nichiha system for the panel systems as well as the brick veneers. Again, this is, producing less waste. It's a manufactured product, and it is part of the sustainable practices for Circle K. We are also using, as you see on the elevations, we have the pre-manufactured metal awnings, and then this is just a palette representation of the materials. All right, so in terms of the variance request, this is looking at the 17th Street, the Dawson Street elevation, and the overall fenestration right now is, based on the calculation with ordinance, is at 21.1%. This is including the articulation of the parapets, which are in part to hide the rooftop equipment. If you take a look at this from a structure standpoint to the top of the roof, that percentage is at 28%, and if you look at it from the height of the inside space, that glazing ratio is at 45%. Similarly, for 17th Street, we would have an overall for the ordinance at 10.2%. Based on the structure to the roof, we're at 13%, and from ceiling height, we're at 20%. This is the floor plan for Circle K. The Dawson Street entry is at the top of the page, which is our primary entry at the public plaza, which has the amenity seating in it as well. To the right side of the page, you would see the employee entrance, which leads into the back of house for Circle K. That also houses our utilities and our electric connections. On the lower side of the page is your secondary entry off of the parking towards the fuel canopy. This is also where Circle K would have their deliveries and loading come through, as well as all trash removal is out through this elevation over to the trash enclosure. And then to the left side of the page, you have the second primary entrance, which is off of 16th Street. So looking again at that, in the upper left, you have the Dawson Street elevation with the public amenity, which is the little plaza which has seating areas and direct connection for pedestrians. And then on the lower side, you see the second plaza area, which is off of 17th Street. There's a direct pedestrian access off 17, which comes to the amenity, leads to the employee entrance on that side, or also to the secondary entrance at the interior. And then this is just a view of the trash enclosure, which you can see on the, if you look back at the site plan, you will see that it's over on the 16th Street side. And it's just designed with the similar materials for the building so that it ties in from an architectural standpoint.
And so just to finish up, this is just the slide with the BOA variance requirements. You are all very familiar with those, so let us just go through them really quickly. An unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application due to the number of primary entrances required along the frontages. We contend that we do have two primary entrances, Dawson Street and the internal next to the fuel pumps. But if not, we would ask for a variance from that requirement based on these elevations. The subject property is disproportionately affected due to the 3 street frontages. Again, we contend that this particular property is very peculiar, and any building that goes on this property would have similar issues. It's been vacant for a while and been undeveloped. We actually had a really well-attended and positive community meeting with the neighbors, as well as the Design Adjustment Committee meeting where we had the driveway issues. The applicant has not taken any action to create this hardship. The property is as it is and has been that way for quite some time. And the approval as requested would allow reasonable use of the project area, allowing some latitude, and it's within the spirit of the ordinance. Again, just to go back and show you what the ordinance calls for. So this is our design proposal. And if you take a look at figure 18407.12, as well as the elevations that Ms. Thurston showed, I think they're all very similar in spirit. So we would just ask the board to consider the variance requests, and we're happy to answer any specific questions you may have. We also have with our development team, Mr. Joseph Soraya. Did I say that right? He's the principal architect. He's not licensed in North Carolina, but he does have substantial additional information about the project if you have any other questions that one of us can't answer.
Okay. Does
Thank you.
anyone have any questions right now? Just for the record, could you mind stating your variance request again, just so it's clear to all of us?
Yes. So, do you want to handle that? Okay. We are requesting a variance from the semi-urban frontage requirements of 18407 for the primary entrance. We have provided a primary entrance on 2 of the 3 street frontages, and we're requesting a variance from the fenestration requirements, also part of the semi-urban street frontage requirements.
Okay.
How much of a variance are you requesting on the fenestration requirements?
I'm going to bring that slide back up, and I'll let Mr. Watson answer that.
All right, so for on the Dawson Street elevation, we're at 21.1%. And then for the 17th Street elevation, it was
I have those numbers handy if that would be helpful.
The request along 17th Street is for a variance of 29.8%. Along Dawson Street, the variance request would be for 18.9%. And along 16th, the request would be for 24.4%. Does that sound
Great.
correct?
Yeah, all right. Does anyone, the applicant at this time? City have any questions for the applicant?
Could you state again the location of the loading area?
Sure. The loading primarily is through the entrance facing the fuel canopy. So it is not off of any of the street.
It'd be the southern elevation? Or the
Southern
okay.
elevation.
I'll also, that my mic is not quite working.
Your voice isn't quite working.
I think it's just the mic. Ms. Schaefer had brought up the transparency issue. She's correct that it wouldn't need to be completely see-through. Glazing could just be any kind of glass that's somewhat opaque. There's no specific requirement that it be completely transparent.
And I guess one question, but with what's going before planning in next month's planning commission meeting, any impact on a change of zoning on what would be giving up to if it's voted for? Because you're going for a change of the zoning class, correct?
I think my reading, right now, the UMX, I think we have evaluated this request under the new zoning change. There's actually not much difference between the two zoning districts in this area, but it's my understanding that we've requested it based on the rezoning. And I think that's how staff has evaluated it.
Okay, that's why I couldn't quite, I was trying to get between the two. So
Sure.
if whatever happens, if there is an approval, it's based on the anticipated approval of planning. So if they didn't approve that, then the variance would be void.
I believe so,
That is
yes.
correct.
Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to make sure
Right.
I was not sure on that, so thank you. If there's no further questions, and no one else to present any evidence, we'll go into evidentiary hearing, opened up to non-parties, and would ask that you bring information that you find is competent, material, and substance in nature. And anyone that would like to come forward, please do so at this time. Yeah, you'll go up and just give us your name and your address.
I'll need to swear him in.
I'm sorry?
I'll need to swear.
Okay.
Yeah, you weren't here when I swore people in. You'll just raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jeff Carney. I actually own the properties that are just to the south.
Are you able to get him on my?
Just speak into the mic.
Okay.
Yeah, just make sure it goes for the
Sure.
record.
My name's Jeff Carney. I own the two properties just south of the proposed location. As was stated earlier, the community in that area is really for this. We've struggled with the homeless population taking over the space many times. We see this as a very positive thing for the community in that area. And I really I showed up to kind of support the cause here because I think it's going to just, once again, totally improve the area. I wanted you to hear from someone that I do have a vested interest. I've spent quite a bit of money improving my buildings there. But more than that, I think that it's going to serve the community, and just wanted to speak on it. So, does anyone have anything for me? Or
Anyone have any questions? All right, thank you, sir.
thanks.
Is there anyone else who would like to speak or present any information? All right, seeing that there aren't any, anything else from city during the?
Not at this time.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the evidentiary hearing and move on to any type of closing. Anything else the city at this time? How about for the applicant? No? All right. That being the case, we'll ask that we go into deliberation and see what your wishes are.
I really think the entrance on Dawson Street makes sense and really is the natural flow of the property. So I absolutely do not have a problem with the primary entrance on Dawson Street variance request.
Anybody else have some thoughts?
The flow of the property goes on the Dawson Street entrance as well, so I have no concerns with that.
All right.
I would agree. I would agree in that, that the natural flow of the property does come in off of the Dawson Street entrance, so I would have no problem finding, support of the 4 findings of fact with that. However, I don't know how I feel about the fenestration variance on that. I do think that it could be a little bit better. I mean, it's essentially 50% reduction in the requirements. And just looking at the renderings, there are some spaces where there could be fenestration added. But that would just be my thoughts on that.
Anyone else have thoughts on that?
Does the city have any thoughts on the fenestration variance request as it relates to the property and the zoning change?
I'm going to let Mr. Chambers correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the city has just processed a text amendment that would require 30% fenestration in the urban mixed-use district, which is what this property is currently zoned.
So it would drop from the 40 down to the 30?
You can just answer me.
Yeah, I'm answering Ms. Thurston's question. Is in the current UMX district, it would be 50% on the primary, 30% on the secondary in the current district.
Any thoughts on?
The variance requests, 18.9% on Dawson, 29.8 on 17th, and 24.4% on 16th Street are based on the 50% and 30% requirements.
They're based on a 40% requirement for the community business district.
And I'm sorry, I know it's not my time to speak, but know that if the 30% is something the board would like to see and would agree to that, without seeing the elevations, we could agree to a 30% fenestration.
Okay.
Is that along all of the frontages, Ms. Schaefer?
If I may, can I just ask
Yeah,
Mr. Soraya to come up and answer that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Good afternoon, Joseph Cerrulla. I'm a design principal for RDC. When we put together the elevations, we try to utilize as much space available between, the ceiling, like you can see here, to be able to have the penetration. We can add another 5–10%. We can put it on the corners. We can have some windows over there and add a little bit of, fenestration to get to that percentages. So, will not affect the overall design, but we're focusing primarily on facing Dawson with the public area.
So you'd be looking to have 30% fenestration on each facade, is that right?
Yeah, we can. The only thing it's facing 17th Street. It's our kind of entrance for the employees. That particular door, it's a metal door for security. We can add another window to get to that maybe 20–25%. So, and it's a very small facade and it's a very tall facade. Yeah. So when you look at this facade, we got a little space because we have the corners, the towers. We can do some kind of an element to create some windows, and we can take actually, the bottom of the window, we can push it 1 foot below and take that base down to create a little bit more window space. But when you go to this particular elevation, you know, the thing is we have some equipment and some things outside that we not be able to have enough space. So this one, it's also very tall to screen all the compressors and everything we have before. That's what, when Ralph was looking at this, if you look at the real space that we have between the ceiling below to create that fenestration, it's a little bit hard to create that thing. So I think for those one and the interior one, we can go to the 30%. For this particular one, so if we can get it from what we have right now on 11.2% or 10% to 20, that's something that it's more feasible and we'll be able to function better.
So the 20% would be on the south, the Dawson.
Yeah, you see, on the northwest, Dawson Street, in the southeast elevation, we can go to 30. So southeast and northeast, we can go to 30%. And then on the southeast, what we call 16th Street, 16, we have to go, you know, to 25%. And the same thing for the northeast, which is
As a
facing
point of
7.
clarification, do you mean 17th, where the employee entrance is located? You could go to
Yeah, the
25%?
Yes.
Okay.
We can get it to 25%.
And the other two, 30%?
Correct.
Okay.
So basically, side elevations, 25, and then front and back, 30.
Did the city say that the new proposed change 50% of the street front or the front of the building and then 30% for the other?
The change was, well, it's a different district. It's the urban mixed-use district, which is what this property is currently zoned, requires 50% fenestration along the frontage. But then in situations like this where there are multiple frontages, secondary frontages can be reduced to 30%.
Okay.
Okay, so we're looking at fenestration of 30% on Dawson and the backside, then 25% on the 17th and 16th Street ends.
I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with that, too.
I'd be fine with that as well.
Yeah, these are the numbers.
All right, does
Well, I mean,
any other questions? Or it is sort of a difficult concept. Sometimes you're going back and forth from the different percent. And this property, the way it has four sides exposed is different than if some properties have one frontage. So you can see you wouldn't be setting a precedent.
yeah, I think I can propose a motion. I'd like to propose a motion that we grant the variance for the entrance, primary entrance on Dawson Street as requested. And the fenestration, we grant the variance subject to 30% on Dawson Street, 30% on the rear of the building toward the fuel canopy, and then 25% fenestration on the 17th and 16th Street facades.
All right, there is a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion at all? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion presented, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? If that passes. Thank you very much. Are we good and clear on what we did? Okay. Oh, I know it's passed, but we just wanted to make sure. Yep. We're.
Thank you very much for your time.
Sure, thank you. The next item is 518 South Fifth Avenue. Variance to the city code 18-30 to allow an accessory dwelling to exceed the maximum allowable area. And Catherine, you're going to be presenting this one also?
Yeah. Subject property is Zone Historic District Residential, HDR, and it contains a 1,056 square foot single-family residential structure and 2 accessory buildings. Of those, one is 720 square feet and the other 64 square feet, according to New Hanover County tax records. City Code Section 18199 allows up to 2 accessory buildings, provided that the combined square footage doesn't exceed 100% of the gross floor area of the primary structure. The applicant has proposed to convert the 720 square foot accessory structure into a detached accessory apartment. Accessory dwelling units are permitted up to 50% of the gross floor area of the principal structure, or 1,200 square feet, whichever is less. Based on the square footage of the existing house, city code would allow an accessory dwelling unit up to 528 square feet for this property. On October 2nd, 2023, the applicant submitted a request for a variance of 192 square feet to allow the entire accessory building to be converted to living space. This matter was set for hearing today, November 16th, 2023. This is the South Fifth elevation of the property, just to kind of give you an idea of where the property is located. That is the Old Halls Drugstore RX restaurant in the lower left-hand corner there. And I'd like to submit the case summary and all of the attachments into the record. The applicant is also present with a presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have of staff.
All right, is there any questions at this time? All right, thank you. All right, would the applicant like to see? Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kyber Nasser, and I am the property owner of 518 South 5th Avenue. I currently live at 513 South 7th Street. I am just a couple blocks away. I think the variance has already been explained. I've got a quick presentation just running through the 4 required items for a variance. Nope. Is it pulled up, or do I need to?
Your
PDF?
presentation was sent as paper copies, so it was included in the packet that went out to the board.
Oh, well, in that case, I can just do it off of memory real quick. I thought I had sent the PDF in afterwards, but I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
It's in the packet.
This is luckily a pretty straightforward variance in my own opinion. So, as is already laid out, this is a variance for 192 square feet to allow the current existing building to be converted into an ADU. So the first finding, as required by the City of Wilmington, is unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. I believe the strict application of the ordinance would result in an unnecessary hardship. It would either require significant demolition to the existing structure and a lot of rework, or going through the process of adding a whole renovation onto the existing building to increase the square footage and then be able to convert the garage. Next one is the hardships result from conditions that are peculiar to the property, such as location, size, or topography. So the proposed structure is pre-existing to the property. It was not built by me, and it was built by a previous owner of the property. The square footage of the garage, if converted to an ADU, would still be well within the 1,200 square foot maximum prescribed by City of Wilmington. Just this specific structure requires a variance because of the limited size of the main structure. Next, the hardship did not result from actions taken by the applicant. This was built by pre-existing owner, and it was not zoned as an ADU at the time. It was as just a garage. And the last one, and I personally think that this is the most important one, the requested variance is consistent with the spirit, purpose, and intent of the ordinance. So it's still well within the 1,200 square feet as stated, and I believe converting this property to an accessory dwelling unit goes along with the City of Wilmington's overall development planning guide, their comprehensive plan regarding housing. This will allow more housing downtown without significantly changing the character of the city. This is an important thing as we struggle with affordable housing, having more housing, but it's also not a massive apartment building that's going to completely change the look and the feel of the neighborhood. That's something that I personally care about, as I do live 2 blocks away currently. And I love living in the historic district downtown, being able to walk, see all the buildings. But housing's also a struggle, so this will help out with that. Some supporting documentation. It's the comprehensive plan discusses a little bit about zoning policies. I think one of the specific mentions is 3.2.4, construction of accessory dwelling units such as garage apartments, granny flats, mother-in-law suites should be allowed to provide housing options in areas with existing infrastructure and access to goods and services. This property is perfect for that. It's downtown, it's walkable to a lot of restaurants, it's walkable to the bars, it's walkable to the Riverwalk. It's a great place to live, really. Keep going through this, there's some supporting documentation that shows the square footage of the main building. The last thing, when I was looking up some of the previous variances granted in the past, there actually was a question on a variance for a very similar one about parking, which even though it's not a requirement of the city, there is off-street parking available on the property for 3 to 4 cars, and there's street parking as well on 5th Street. And then the last one I have is meeting minutes from May 18th, 2023. This is case BADV 50-424. And it's a very similar variance request where the application was to zone a garage into an ADU, but they were limited by the primary square footage of the main residence. And this was granted unanimously by the Board of Adjustment, so I think there's a precedent there as well. I know I ran through that pretty quickly, so if there are any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Your conversion to the ADU, you don't plan on increasing the footprint of the garage at all, is that right?
No, it is currently a 24 by 30 existing building, so that'll be 720 square feet. It will stay on the same concrete pad. I will likely end up removing, there's currently approximately 4 foot by 4 foot concrete pad at the main door entrance. And then I believe about an 8 by 12 foot concrete pad as a ramp to get into the garage. Those will likely be removed as part of the construction process, so that would remove some impermeable space too.
Thank you.
A certificate of appropriateness because of where it's located?
Yes, it will. I went to the Historic District last week and was granted my COA for that as well. Carriage houses are well aligned within the Historic District guidelines too. So I'll have to go through that process and building permit and all that too. But they gave me the approval, so it's one step.
I couldn't find the results on their site, so I was curious how it's done. Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions at this time? All right. Thank you. City, have any questions of the applicant at all?
Not at this time.
All right. Thank you. On to opening up the evidentiary hearing on this. I ask that anyone come forward that has any competent or material information that's substantial and without any evidence related to this matter. Is there anyone that'd like to speak on this matter? I'm not either. just doing it for the recording. All right. Being that there aren't any, we'll close the evidentiary hearing. Is there any closing or additional information from the city?
Nothing further from the city.
Anything else from the applicant? Mr. Sir? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move forward to deliberations and seeing what your wishes are.
I think it certainly meets all the requirements of an ADU. It's an existing structure. There's not going to be any additions to the footprint, and I think it certainly fits with the spirit of intent of the city with accessory dwelling units downtown. So I would be in favor of it.
I'd be in favor as well, and I feel like the applicant did a really nice job laying out the 4 findings of facts for us, too.
I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve this variance.
All right, there's been a motion for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? It passes 5 to. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You too. We'll move on to anything, updates or anything we need to know? No? We can,
Thank you.
take a motion to.
Well, I guess, you can adjourn, but our next meeting is December 21st, and I know that that's very close to the holiday season, so if you can let us know, we do have items scheduled for that meeting, so if you can let us know as soon as possible if you're not able to make it, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, and,
I'll be here. I have no life, so.
all right, yeah. Okay, well, know if there's any issues so that we can have a full board. All right, we'll adjourn.
What shortest day of the year?
Yeah, I like it. All right, thank you.